By some estimates, up to 9% of women experience what some are now calling postpartum post-traumatic stress disorder. One of the leading causes of postpartum post-traumatic stress disorder is the loss of future fertility in women who suffer a postpartum hemorrhage and then need an emergent life-saving but fertility-robbing postpartum hysterectomy. This is Ingrid and Kevin's story of love, loss, and attempts to heal. Like a lot of folks, Ingrid and Kevin's love story started in high school. Well, sort of.
What really happened, though, is
What's the real story?
we met in high school senior year, and I was, like, the summer before going to college, I was interested in her, but she was too busy, too good for me. But then she went to college and gained a little bit of weight.
You're in trouble.
This is true.
Then came back home, and I was here and waiting.
After a whirlwind romance, the newlyweds settles down, and their future plans included having a big, happy family.
4 kids, maybe 3, just depending on our finances, what we would want to be able to give everyone a good life. But yeah, probably 4.
Oh yeah, and did we mention that Ingrid is a nurse? Yep, and not surprisingly, this woman who loves children and who had plans for a big family of her own one day, well, you guessed it. She's a labor and delivery nurse, helping other women bring new life into this world.
Have a good delivery. I mean, I'm the one who tears up when other people, or you're pushing while they're pushing. Yeah. So I think that I really like that. And
new life, as it turns out, that's sometimes even named after her.
I have some memorable ones in that I've had, kind of after the fact, a patient just gave me a card recently, maybe within the last 3 months, that she was going to have her 3rd child, and it turns out I had been there for her first 2 deliveries, and with the second one I had stayed after my shift to help the baby to stay, if you get to complete, but then it's 7 a.m. at that time. Yeah. You don't want to leave, so I stayed a little longer, and then it turns out she ended up naming that baby after me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was super excited about that.
Sweet baby Ingrid, huh? Well, those are the perks of labor and delivery nursing, folks. You help a pregnant woman bring her new baby into this world, and she just might name that baby after you. And speaking of pregnant women, what were Ingrid's pregnancies like?
Very grateful to be pregnant every time I was pregnant. I think that I had relatively smooth pregnancies, which helps make it easier to be a happy pregnant patient.
Like, that was just the best time of her life, I think.
Probably. Yeah. No, I like being pregnant. I mean, even with Owen, I remember I had really bad reflux with him at the end, so bad that I was vomiting blood. It was bad. And I can remember being at work maybe 2 weeks before delivery and talking about it, not complaining, but talking about it, and one of the other doctors being like, so I guess you're done. And I was like, oh no, I'm not done. Like, even though I'm uncomfortable now, you get a baby at the end. I mean, I think that's the difference between any other kind of...
Right.
So as her second, and as it would unexpectedly turn out, her final pregnancy was nearing its completion, were there any signs of trouble to come or any bumps in the road?
At one point, I did get hit by a car. Like, I myself got hit by a car.
That's a bump in the road, literally.
Yeah, correct. That bump was...
You would think.
Yeah. I went... It was rainy and dark to the driver's credit, and I did, like, the little roll and landed in the mud. But they didn't... They hit and ran.
Are you serious?
Like, they pulled over.
They stopped and then
got out of the car, made eye contact with me, and then took off.
So, with that both figurative and literal bump in the road safely behind Ingrid and Kevin, what about the big day in cesarean section number 2 when they'd finally get a chance to meet baby Owen?
Kevin got to stand up and say it was a boy, and I was shocked, I guess. I never had an inkling, but I was still surprised. I would have been surprised either way. But so it went good. My surgery, in and of itself, went smooth. Kevin left with the baby to go back to the recovery room, and I even had asked I asked the doctor how my uterus looked, because I'm a nurse, and that's how I think.
How's my uterus?
Yeah, and it can get thin with a window, so I was like, how did it look? And she's like, oh, it looks good. And it went fine. Surgery, in and of itself, went fine. Okay. Then you have your 2-hour recovery period upstairs, and I was able to have the baby, Owen, Kevin there. We did okay. We decided to let our family wait and come and meet us once we got down to the postpartum room, so that we could have our daughter meet our son first before anybody else, and because nobody knew if it was a boy or girl, so we wanted her to know, even though she was 2 and probably didn't care. And during that, I think I had a little extra bleeding, but I was able to breastfeed the baby. It was okay. And then I sent them away because I wasn't feeling well, and I didn't want to be sick in front of Evie. And I think really I was probably just getting worse. I just didn't know that I was getting worse. I really tried to be, for better or for worse, be the patient for that. I didn't ever feel, how does my fundus feel? I didn't ever look at my bleeding And I'm such an anal spazzy person that is very unlike me. So I don't know, was that because I was getting a little bit confused, or was that because I was really just trying to be the mom and not be the patient and not be annoying? Yeah. I remember looking to Kevin and being like, because then the nurse kept coming in, they brought in the scale to weigh your blood loss. Yeah. Then I was taking oral medicine to try and stop the extra bleeding, and I remember just mouthing, being like, this isn't normal, just so you know, this isn't normal. But I was never thinking I'm gonna end up being really sick from this. Yeah.
As Ingrid's condition rapidly deteriorated, as she was being rushed back to the operating room, her final words to Kevin before going into surgery were hauntingly prophetic.
Everyone says, I don't remember, but Kevin remembers me saying, like, if I end up getting a hysterectomy, I will be devastated. But I do not recall saying that, but apparently these were my last words. I remember saying, you need to call my mom. Yeah. But
once back in surgery, doctors discovered that a portion of Ingrid's uterus had ruptured, causing massive internal bleeding. With the problem now diagnosed, doctors embarked upon a marathon operation, trying everything possible to control this bleeding.
So they worked for hours. I think 5 or 6 hours I was in surgery, wouldn't you say?
I thought it was a long time. I mean, I thought it was 9
grand
total, but not maybe 9 hours of surgery.
After a number of different surgical techniques had been tried and were unsuccessful, Ingrid was then rushed, belly still open, to one of the hospital's interventional radiology suites, where attempts were made to block the blood vessels supplying Ingrid's uterus in a desperate attempt to control the bleeding.
I thought it was, I don't know, I thought that they were like trying very, very, very hard to save her uterus or whatever, which probably out of like love and that's like what she said going into the operating room or whatever. But you know, I was just like, okay, like that's important, but
you wanted a wife.
I wanted you to survive. So
when last-ditch efforts in interventional radiology to control the bleeding were unsuccessful, doctors who were not just doctors to Ingrid, but who were also friends, had to make the difficult, heartbreaking decision to remove her uterus.
We'll get her put back together, versus Kevin was just like, okay, let's just get her alive, versus put back together with all of her parts. Which I appreciate both perspectives.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that my coworkers knew how much, including like when even reading the op report, it's like the patient's strong desire to have a large family. So I think that everybody just knew that about me. That's just the kind of person I am.
Still critical after her marathon operation and her emergent hysterectomy, Ingrid spent the night after surgery in the intensive care unit.
With me mainly, and Kevin was back and forth between the baby and me. That someone had some point had told me overnight that I had had the hysterectomy, and she says like my vitals went through the roof, which is just sad to me because you can think that's like your visceral reaction. Right. Even not being myself conscious, I was upset about it. And then she said that nurse overnight, who I don't know who it is, she prayed with me that I would have the strength, which would make me cry. But that was just awesome for her and very touching for me later on. But either way, sorry.
No, it's okay.
The next day, I remember waking up, being upset, just crying, and then because I was
After
crying,
the breathing tube had been removed and Ingrid was no longer sedated, the full weight of what had transpired began to set in.
But it was just wrapping our mind around it. I was very upset. Yeah. I mean, I think like I was, and I am always and continue to be very grateful that I have Owen and that I'm okay. Not everyone gets that luxury. Sorry, such a crybaby. No, but I was very grateful I had Owen, but even throughout that gratitude, I was very sad. I mean, like, I think that I talk about patients now who have had a hyst after their delivery, similar situation, and people will be like, they haven't seen the baby yet, they haven't asked for the baby. Like, so they haven't brought them the baby from the NICU. I'm like, they want the baby. They just don't know they want to talk about the baby, because I think even Kevin will say, like, if I hadn't been a nurse and I hadn't known I need to bond with this baby, I need to breastfeed this baby, I need to do what I need to do, like just go into mom mode and do it even though you don't feel like doing it, you wouldn't have, because you felt like junk, you were sad, you were sick, you were in the ICU with this bad news. You know, we were planners, so we thought, like he said, I plan everything up far in advance. We thought, okay, we're going to have another baby in 2 years, then we'll have to get a van. And I don't want a van, but we're going to have to get a van because we're going to have 3 kids now. What are we going to do? And then maybe we could plan a Disney trip when this one's this age. I mean, obviously you aren't gifted those things. Something else could have happened. I could have not been able to get pregnant. You never know the future, but I'm that kind of a planner. So for some people, they have a hard time recognizing, why did I have a hard time with this? I have a boy and I have a girl. But I was grieving the loss of what I thought I would have. So I think, you know...
While both Kevin and Ingrid grieved the loss of what they once thought would be a large family,
Conversely to how you were devastated in some ways, I was like just very grateful. Like I signed away that thing, hours ago. Like get rid of the freaking uterus if she can survive. And then she did. So I felt like it was a trade and, like a better trade or whatever. So, I just told her I was proud of her because she struggled through that thing. And I knew how she would take it, but I don't know. I mean, I knew we would just get there over time. I knew it would be a process, and it has been. But it's not bad. I mean, we're okay, but there's just this emotion.
While Kevin and Ingrid both grieved their collective loss, the physical trauma that Ingrid suffered, in addition to the emotional trauma that they both suffered, likely added even further to the emotional burden that Ingrid once carried, and still in many ways continues to carry today.
As time went on, I think we did okay. I did better for a while, and then it was maybe at the 2-year mark since the delivery that I kind of got bummed about everything again, because I thought, like, this is when we would be having a baby again, which, not that Kevin wasn't supportive, but was harder for him to understand then, because I was still living in that moment a little bit. And so he's like, I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like nobody gets it. So I joined sounds silly, but like a Facebook support group of people who have had postpartum hysterectomy and hemorrhages. And like I had mentioned on that, I mean, not that I was an avid participant, because I'm not, but it's interesting just to know that, like, there are other people in this boat. Like, there are other people who, and I'm not surprisingly, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but a lot of people have had, like, PTSD from it. Like, it really has impacted these women a lot. And so, like, knowing that we were going to do this, I was like, what would you want me to remember to say? And they were just like, just that it's a lot bigger than a lot of people realize. Like, the lasting impact can be a lot bigger. A lot of these women have gone to therapy, and I think for me, I didn't have to do that only because I work with the people who were there. Right. And it's all women, and you can talk about it all day long, and they would probably cry right along with me and pat me on my back and say, it sucks or whatever. But if you didn't have that, if you didn't have a group of people
Moving
who
forward, what are Kevin and Ingrid's plans? Well, it won't come as a surprise to anyone that knows this loving couple that they now hope to one day open both their home and their hearts to an adoptive child.
So it's not that adoption has been a foreign concept for me. I think had we not been able to have our own children initially, we would have adopted. It's something, it's great to see kids who have my silly smile or act like their dad or whatever, but you don't need that to be a parent.
After weighing their options, Kevin and Ingrid chose to pursue a private domestic adoption. The private domestic adoption process does not involve the use of an adoption agency, and this can sometimes present a challenge for prospective new parents.
Initial stuff for us is that you are kind of marketing yourself, and marketing is a weird word to use for trying to find a baby, but that's kind of what you have to do. You have to get the word out there. If you used an agency, maybe they would put you on their website. They would probably have some moms contact them. But for us, it felt like maybe this was a little more of a natural fit, kind of if it's God's will sort of thing, that something's going to come across us. Not that I'm not going to work my little butt off to, like, try and connect with someone.
And what about that self-marketing?
We used to be very self-deprecating, I think is the word. People like, yeah, we're kind of forgettable. We're nice. We're good moms and dads, but you might not remember us, versus now I need to be like, no, but we are committed to raising a great child, and I do like to craft with them, and he's an awesome, funny dad and a hard worker. And so
in addition to the rigors of having to self-market, the adoption process can leave prospective new parents feeling both emotionally and financially vulnerable. So how do Kevin and Ingrid cope with the ups and downs?
I try to keep us guarded, or at least I try to play that role, because I think if we allow ourselves to get, like, too excited or whatever, I think it could be like a rough road, possibly. We don't know.
So that spoke to the emotional vulnerability. But what about the financial vulnerability?
Like the one negative or failed match we had, she probably needed money. I mean, I don't really blame her for doing whatever, she's probably in an unfortunate situation.
The fact that someone out there would try to take financial advantage of people wanting nothing more than to complete their families is sad. But Kevin and Ingrid's grace and understanding were both admirable and noteworthy. So we finished our time with these two by asking them what they would like any prospective birth mother considering adoption to know about them and their family.
parents, and have so much love to give and would raise a child with open arms, whether it was born in my tummy or not in my tummy. But I think I am a good mom. I may not always sell myself on a lot of things, and I may not be the best mom at every moment, but I really try to be. I try and help them learn and love them and expose them to different things and different types of people. And I think that I really could give a child a full life, and they would complete us. I mean, they would give us a full life is really the thing. It's not that you're giving them a home. They're really a gift to us. And I think Kevin is not good about selling himself, but he is a hard worker, and he is an awesome dad. I mean, if you were here for 5 more minutes, there would have been a Nerf war going on with those little kids. So we have a good home and a lot of love to give.
Yeah, no, I will bring the fun.
Yeah.
You know,
You bring the fun.
she'll do-
You'll bring the fun. She'll bring the organization.
She'll do the cooking and the rearing and all the important stuff, but, you know, I'll just be there to, you know, make it fun.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the job of most dads.
Twin Doctors TV. Educate, inspire, entertain. Follow us at www.twindoctorstv.com and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Stay healthy. Bye now.